here is somebody, let me start by saying this. This is somebody I respect a lot. This is someone I respect a lot. I grew up listening to him. Winning Ways. That was a TV program. I was already pastor in the UK. I was pastoring Kingsway International Christian Center, KICC. Fantastic man of God. Respect him a lot. But history doesn't really care about sentiments, like my own personal sentiments, or somebody I like, somebody I respect, somebody I hold in very high esteem. When things are said, when the wrong things are said, those things should be corrected, albeit with respect. But we can't just say this is how people get to believe in the wrong things. If you don't understand what I'm saying, you're going to get it in a bit. This is Pastor Matthew Ashimolowo. He was on a podcast recently, and again, he's an older person. He's in his 70s. So he saw what happened in the north. And I can't even, come against, I can't speak against his quote-unquote lived experience, like they say. But there is a lot surrounding the events that is either it's not privy to, or if for some reason it chose not to acknowledge in this particular conversation. Let me say something as well. You could be 80. You could be 90 years old. Doesn't mean you know everything that happened. Age is something we respect and we defer to. When you're about land, we say Omodegbon, Agbagbon Lafida Lefe. There are things that even, all of us, if you are humble, there are things you'll find in books. I'd be like, how come I did not know this happened? That's because we don't know everything, and that keeps us humble. But as you discover things, you begin to change your mind, because your mind is renewed based on what you're exposed to in terms of information. So I want to say this because a lot of Christians also have this thing in their minds where, so it doesn't look like you're against Christianity. The reason you are thinking like that is because you don't even understand what Christianity is. Go and tell the Irish to change their history because they are Christians, just like England. We don't understand nationhood. We don't understand what it means to have loyalty to your people, because it's either we are hiding under a non-existing Nigeria, one Nigeria, which I believe in, by the way, but not in the way that a lot of people believe in, or we are hiding under, we are Christians, all things are passed away. The person you are talking to is literally using your history against you because you are Christians and you are one Nigeria. You are saying it doesn't really matter because you are a Christian and one Nigeria. Who is now smart? Anyway, let's listen to what Pastor Matthew had to say. Again, I respect him a lot. No, this is not about money. It's not about money. There's something else, but I'll see if I have to talk about it later, I'll talk about it. But I think it's something that we have to be intentional about, especially as believers. Just because we all belong to Jesus does not mean that we should change history to make you feel comfortable, or that while acknowledging your pains, we should literally rewrite everything to make you the sole victim of the narrative. That's nonsense. And what I'm saying all of this because, let me get into it once it's done. I don't know if I should stop and play or if I just play everything, but I'll play everything, right? Because most of what he said is true. Pause and play, but this one is mostly true. But that particular clause is one of the major problems where we are as Nigerians. Take a listen to this.
The Zaria Kano riots, in which Igbos were being hacked on the street, and my dad being a soldier, I still remember him coming home with his helmet dented from the rioters throwing stones at even the soldiers. It was so bad. My dad, at that time, my mom, she had health issues and had to live permanently in Ilefe, so there was a stepmother in the house. The woman, in fear, carried myself and my sister in Zaria. I think it was July 66, because that's when Agui Yironsi and Adekunle Faji were killed. It was July. She carried us and ran to the barracks because my dad is on duty trying to quell the riots. Mr. Femi, we had to sleep on the open field of the parade ground in the Zaria barracks. We were not the only family. Many had run there, seeing that Igbos were being hacked. Other tribes ran there that it might be their turn. And many don't even know. It went on till December of 66, and Chief Obafemi Awolowo, somewhere around November, instructed all the Yoruba soldiers to leave the north and come down south.
Let me just quickly pause and say this. Awolowo did not instruct soldiers to leave the north. That was Gowon. But Awolowo persuaded Gowon to issue that order. Because earlier, Gowon had issued a similar order at the insistence of Ojukwu. When Ojukwu said that Igbo officers should be asked to return to the eastern region. This was even before the declaration of Biafra. Right? So he had asked for Igbo soldiers to be redeployed, or officers, and everybody had returned. And Awo made the same case for Yoruba people, and it took a while, but eventually one acceded and granted Awo's request. It was not Awo that gave that order. Awo was not in the capacity. It wasn't in any capacity to order soldiers to return home. That was Gowon. That was Gowon's order, and Gowon did that. Number one, because he had done it for the eastern region months before, and number two, he also did it at the insistence of Awo, who felt that our own people should also be back home to protect our land. But most of everything he's saying to that point is experience. But that particular thing about Awo commanding them, Awo could not have, and Awo did not. Let's continue listening.
Obafemi Awolowo, somewhere around November, instructed all the Yoruba soldiers to leave the north and come down south. That is how I ended in the south. So we filled one long train. I'm still trying to remember. Yeah, I think when the train reaches Kano. So we all filled one train. All of us soldier families are stopped at Mokola Barracks. December 12, 1966. We stopped in front of Mokola Barracks and we assigned rooms. All the train filled with Yoruba soldiers. That was how messy the north became. Because you can't trace the eastern problem without taking it back to the pogrom of 66.
That's my major concern with that video. When he said you can't trace the eastern problem without taking it back to the pogrom. It's a thing. You know what? You
cannot trace the quest for Biafra without tracing it back to the pogrom of 66. Is Biafra right? I don't think so. Should Biafra go? I don't think so. Why don't I think so? We need each other. I can't even imagine Lagos without my eastern brother. Now, there are many things we no go fit get by you. Lekki no go survive if my eastern brother is not there. Because we Yorubas, we are all one baby. We love our faji.
Let's start with the last one. This idea that Yoruba people love faji. We are all one baby people. We don't have to self-deprecate in order to create an idea of a one Nigeria. Ṣé ẹ̀gbálẹ̀ mọ́ ni àbí Jésù àbí Jẹ̀bú àbí Gbómìnà? What do you mean we like Owambe? Do we like Owambe? Absolutely. And tó bá ṣiṣẹ́ ó gbọ́dọ̀ lásìkò eré. That's what Ebenezer Obey said, chief commander, and he was correct. What do you mean we like Owambe and if they leave, nothing will happen? Before they came, what happened? How are you surviving? How are you trading? Have you stopped trading? This thing that people say because they want to make people feel good about Nigeria, it's rubbish. Not what he said. The idea basically that without them something's going on. What do you mean? The outsiders don't know where to buy things before Igbos got to their land? Or the right people were one land no sategun. Kolo the people mo yen tank fún wọn. The fabric market in Gbagi in Ibadan, is it Igbo that are there that are selling the things there? How did they get those things there? The women in Balogun, in Tejosho, they are there because Igbo put them there. What kind of rubbish is? We say these things because we want to create this one Nigeria idea, and I get it. But no, don't deprecate yourself because you want to make other people feel good. For what? For what? But you can't imagine what if they're not there, they are not there, not near. During Christmas, when they go back home, do you say listen, if you leave, your place will be taken. Period. Am I saying that people are not useful? People are useful, but nobody is indispensable. That's the point. Everyone is useful, but nobody is indispensable. Nobody. You pack your bags and leave today, your place will be filled in no time. And if you're telling me that they should not go, they should go. What do you mean they should not go? Person into unity. They should go if they want to go. You're not pushing them out, but you're fulfilling their request. And if you don't do that, you spend the next 2, 3, 4 generations with a group of people who just blackmail you with something that they're not even willing to get in the first place. They don't want to go. Oh, I'll leave. I'll leave. Oh, yeah, go. You're a bigot. You're a bigot. Is that the person that wants to go? What do you mean I don't want them to go because life is different without them? If they want to go, they should go. If a person is telling you he wants to leave, why would you tell them not to go? What is the benefit that you are getting from that person that will somehow evaporate when the person leaves and has his own nation? If he wants to buy whatever he wants to buy in your blood, you can still buy it. I don't know Ghanaians in Nigeria. Nigeria houses the largest numbers of Ghanaians outside Ghana. They live in Nigeria and they're not Nigerians. The highest number of Ghanaians outside Ghana reside in Nigeria. Excuse me. That the person is not Nigerian does not mean they cannot do what they want to do. Of course, there'll be laws that govern stuff. We have to get back to Nigerian history. And listen, guys, I don't say this out of disrespect or hate for anybody, but from the beginning, everybody that understands history and understands the structure of Nigeria knows this. A group needs the country more than the country needs the group. That doesn't mean the country does not need the group. Everybody needs each other, but not to the point where without you I cannot survive. Without you, people will thrive. Forget survivor. But without them, you can't survive. What's this pandering that we do in Nigeria because we're trying to look for unity? Let the truth be told. And the person who wants to leave, let him weigh his options, knowing that if you leave, your survival is on the line. And if he chooses to leave, then let him go. What? I didn't even want to talk about that part. That's not even what I'm talking today. It's not even the latter part. It's just that I've heard that thing. I heard it from another, gentleman the other time. He's over 60, saying that Yoruba people in Lagos, they use their money, they sold land, and now use the money to bring Wasiu. Then Wasiu now they're now talking about the money of the land. The kind of things that we say. The banter you can have amongst yourself as Yoruba people is not what you can now bring to Nigeria and say, oh, see, I want to talk in it. And wọ́n ta kíní kan wọ́n náwó fún Wàsíù kó wọn kan náà fún Pasuma ṣẹjọ ṣiṣẹ́ ẹ̀ ni. We've got to be very careful how we speak. I'm not saying we should not have unity, but I hate self-deprecation because what it does is, if you are talking to peers, to your peer, listen to what I'm saying. If you're talking to your peer and you self-deprecate, your peer understands that doesn't mean that you are less than who you are claiming to be. You know, it's just ekonsereni. Those who are lower, and I'm using the word or those who are lower than you, take your self-deprecation not as jokes or bant. As far as they are concerned, you are affirming to them that they are higher than you, because they are not your peers. As far as civilization is concerned, as far as culture is concerned, they are not your peers. I don't believe in all these things about you have to bring yourself down so other people now say, I run business. Let me tell you something. Let us tell ourselves the truth. Key. You know, let's touch the grass. Let's go out sometime. Let's go out sometimes. Let's go out. Let's go out. Let's go out. When was the time that Igbos moved out of Nigeria? Because this is how you actually, has it happened before in history? The answer is yes. Have they ever left Nigeria? Yes, they have. Between 1967 and 1970. The question is that when they left, what happened to the Nigerian economy? Anybody that understands the concept of history will not just make statement like, if they leave, something will collapse. So, okay, have they left before? Yes. When they left, what happened? You know what? Let me look for something. I'll see if I can find you what happened after they left. Because we say these things as though it has not happened before. It happened. Folks left Nigeria, right? And when they left, Nigeria did so well. Let me tell you, you know what? I'm going to get into something today. I wasn't planning to do this, but it's good that we're here. Let me just quickly find out stuff. I wasn't planning, so I didn't get it set. But I'll find it. Do I want people to leave Nigeria? See, I want for you what you want for yourself. That's me. I'm not saying you should go, and I'm not saying you should stay. Whatever you want for yourself, get that thing. Don't come around blackmailing everybody. I want to leave. Leave. I want to stay. Stay. I hope I find that piece of it's there's one, I think I've shared it here before, that has to do with the GDP growth of Nigeria between 67 and 1970, and also the market report from Lagos Island that talks about the drop that Nigeria experienced after the Igbos left Lagos. The drop that Lagos experienced after the Igbos left Lagos. We should be talking about these things again, not because somebody is fighting anybody, but we have to stop this self-deprecation. Like, without you I cannot survive. Without you, not only will I survive, I will thrive. Do I want you here? I don't really. Whatever you want. If you want to stay, stay. If you want to go, don't stay another day. That's my own point. All this deprecation rubbish. And by the way, Christians will do this thing a lot because you think that that's what Christianity means. That's not Christianity. They said you can do that with your peers, and just because we are all in Nigeria doesn't mean we are all peers. Someone says Awo should have left them alone. What did Awo do? Awo was not the one that brought them back. Awo was not the head of the country. It was Gowon. I don't blame Gowon, because those people were actually taking land that did not belong to them. I found it. I found the first part. Now I have to find the second part. I found it too. God is good. Let's talk. Let's start with the GDP growth. If you want to have this, please go to macrotrends.net. That's the source of what I'm about to read to you. So there's nothing. Because see, we're not hiding anything. Number one, has the Igbo as a, by the, you know what? Let's start like this. We're already there. The Igbo as a whole, have they ever left Nigeria before? Yes. What happened to the Nigerian economy when they left? Growth. I just remember that on that source. Making 3. I want to read from this book. For some interesting reason, it was lying just beside me. So I think it's going to help us with something. This one has the budget of 1970. Again, I'm not saying this because I want anybody to leave Nigeria or anything like that. I don't hate anybody. And if you think I hate you, I don't care what you think. But I don't hate you, and that's good enough for me. Fine, I found the third one. Let's get into this gently. Let's start with macrotrends.net. You can go online, or you can find the link on Redomi Global. Nigeria GDP historical data. Let's start from 1960. 0% because we just started. 1961, we grew to 0.19%. 1962, 4.1%. 1963, 8.58%. 1964, we came down to 4.95% growth. 1965, 4.89%. Then the coup happened, January of 66. So what happened to GDP growth? Did it go up? No, it tanked. From 4.89%, it went down to minus 4.25% after Erosi took over. Minus 4.25%. Then the war started in 67. Then we went down again, minus 15.7%. From 4.89 to minus 4.25, and then by 67 went to minus 15.74%. This is Nigeria GDP historical data. 1967, minus 15.74. That same year, our Papa was appointed Minister of Finance in 67 when we tanked 15.74. So what happened? In 1 year, we went from minus 15.74% to minus 1.25%. Papa was the Minister of Finance. 68 to 69 went from minus 1.25% to 24.2% growth in the middle of a war. We went from minus 1.25%. That was when all Igbos had left Nigeria. We went from 68 was minus 1.25%. By 69, it was 24.2%. By 1970, when the war ended, Papa had taken it from 24.2 to 25.01% GDP growth. And the GDP itself in 1970 had become $12.55 billion from $6.63 billion that it was in 1969. That was what happened when Igbos left Nigeria. Am I saying they should leave? See, again, if you want to go, if you want to stay, whatever you want to do is fine. But nobody should be gaslighting anybody with "I want to go." When you left, this is what happened. What then happened after the war ended? That's a very good question. I thought you were not going to ask. 1971, we went down from 25.01% to 14.24%. We came down. By 1972, we are 3.36%. We have not, since 1970, gotten back to what Awo did. One more thing. In fact, two more things. I'm going to read from a book by J. Samuel Ligo. The book is called Go On, The Biography of a Soldier Statesman. It says here, Go On, in his budget speech, this is in 1970, Go On announced a total revenue of 556 million naira to an expenditure of 536 million naira. I think our lack of understanding of history is actually affecting us with all this, if you go, I will cry, is a lie. Let me take it again. In his budget speech, Go On announced a total revenue of 556 million naira to an expenditure of 536 million naira, thus creating a surplus of 20 million naira. Think about it. You're coming out of a war and your budget, you have a surplus. That war, Nigeria did not borrow a farthing. We didn't borrow a kobo because the person who was in charge knew how to manage men and resources, and the name of the person is Chief Obafemi Awolowo. That's what I want to talk about. I don't want to deprecate myself and say things like, "Oh, we don't really know anything. If you go and go now, what will now happen?" This is what will happen. Just make sure you have Awo, or at least now you have Tinubu. GDP growth, when they were not there, GDP tanked after they returned. Why? Importation. That's why. Destruction of manufacturing base of the country. Where is the manufacturing base of this country? The thing is, people say all these things and we're supposed to keep quiet because we are all one Nigeria. The truth of the matter is that when Igbos left Nigeria, GDP growth, Nigeria experienced the greatest GDP growth. We've not had it since they got back to Nigeria. I'll take it very quickly. Again, 1960, but let me say it again, by all means. Please go to macrotrends.net, look for Nigeria historical GDP data. And if that's a bit, go to Redomi Global on Telegram. You'll find the link there. But it's easier for you to just go to macrotrends.net, Nigeria historical GDP data. You see the trajectory from 1960 all the way, at least the document I have right now is up to 2022. But you see up to 2025. I'm not going online. It's already in a book. So I'm reading from the book. But if you go online, you find it there as well, because I've checked it before. The point I'm trying to make here is we have not ever gotten what we got when Awo was the Minister of Finance. And since 1970, our GDP growth has been, Haiju was 15.33%, and that was in 2002. That was the highest we've had since 1970. And we also said that the budget of that year, 1970, was a surplus, 20 million naira surplus. A country coming out of a war and paying people 20 pounds. People that are, of course, still ungrateful. But all of this doesn't really mean anything. What if when they left, you suffered very well in Nigeria? You suffer, your markets went down. Is that what happened? Let's read. There's a document here that I think will help us. I'm not weaponizing anything. I just think that I hate to make myself small, because I mean, if I'm doing it for the Lord, that's different. But for people who are going to turn back and use it against me, that's suicidal. Listen to this one. This is from Market Monthly Statements for the month of September 1967. Please pay attention. The total storage collection, the collection from each store. The total storage collection for September 1966 was 7,697 pounds, 1 shillings and 6 pence, as compared to 7,587 pounds, 7 shillings and 6 pence for September 1967. What are they doing? They are trying to compare what happened the month they left a year later. So September 66 versus September 67. So September 66, when Igbos left, the total storage collection was 7,697 pounds, 1 shilling 6 pence. Okay, that was in 66. September 1967 was 7,587 pounds, 7 shillings and 6 pence. The decrease was only 109 pounds and 14 shillings. The markets most affected were Apapa Elemu, Alayabiagba, Ido, Ijero and Obalende, in or near Igbo residential areas. That's from Market, Parks and Cemetery Committee of the Lagos City Council Kedika Committee, February 20, 1968 document. They are saying the only thing that Lagos felt was 109 pounds 14 shillings. That was the difference. And the places that this thing affected were areas, neighborhoods where Igbos congregated, like in Apapa, Elemu, and so on and so forth, in or near Igbo residential areas. If you want to tell people to stay, let it be based on what is good for them, not what is good for me. If you leave, stay or leave or go, I am fine. If you stay, I'm fine. If you leave, I'm okay. I'm thinking about you. What will benefit you? I'm not even selfish. Can you imagine? Yo, if you go out, no, I cannot imagine. I can imagine. In fact, I don't even have to imagine it. I've lived it. So from these three sources, what we saw, or what we can see, I'm not showing both, is that, but when the GDP growth our GDP grew, went up. Number two, at the end of the war, we had a surplus. Number three, we looked at the difference between what we realized in our markets when they were in Lagos and what we realized after they left. And the only difference was £109. And the difference was felt in the areas where they lived. Does this mean anybody should leave Lagos? For me, if you want to go, go. If you want to stay, stay. That's my own. But that if you leave, something is going to happen, nothing. Another time that something like this happened was in 1993 during Oso Abiola, when Igbos left western region and moved back to the east. Did you see tears on the street of people say that, oh, we are hungry, or we really take care of ourselves? The point is that you need the place more than you do. And how do I know that? I'll read something to you again from August 12, 1968 document of Anthony Naro. It says Igbos need to work and trade over the whole country, over the whole of Nigeria. Take that again. Igbos need to work and trade over the whole of Nigeria, which they have always known in this century as their country. They need it. One more thing. They need to trade. Not that they want to. They need it. And saying this thing should not in any way make anybody feel bad about it. I can't be saying things like, oh, we just like Faji, and so we like Faji. Is it not the Faji that made us build the house? People are now complaining that we're not renting to certain people. I mean, you say you have bought all the lands in the area. Now you're saying that people are not renting houses to you. Young people see these things on social media, and they are hearing from elders who they believe know what they're saying, and then they begin to tiptoe. You can love people without making yourself smaller than you are just to please them. Like, what's that about? Number, I want to. What did I say I was looking for now? I want to read something to you from a document from 1960. Nothing has changed. I hope I find it. This was October 1960. I'll find that document. It was from October 1960 in a publication called The Listener. And I've quoted it here before, but I don't want to just say it because people don't be like, you're just talking. No, we'll read it together. Finally found it. I believe, this is Majiparam from October 20, 1960. I believe that the Igbo are the main force for unity. That's a good thing, right? I think so too. Until I read the next line. The next line says, if I let me read it again, you'll see the next line. I believe that the Igbo are the main force for unity. They need unity. As the poorest region, they have had to pour out of their overcrowded forests to seek work all over the other regions. They need unity. Nobody needs Nigeria like Igbos. That is a fact. If you want to stay, stay. If you want to leave, hop on the next bus. No Yoruba child or young man or old man or woman should be feeling like, if you now go, what will happen to me? Nothing bad. Someone said to me the other day, do you not think that Igbos can do you good? Listen, anybody can do me good, and I will do people good, and I do well for people. I bless people, but people bless me. If your blessing will be the reason for me to kowtow to the point where I deprecate myself, keep your blessing, because that's not a blessing. That's a trap. You give people stuff so that they can stop saying the truth. Again, if I say it disrespectfully, that's another thing entirely, and that's not what I do. But the idea that we must lie by taking the blame for your mess up, that's nonsense. If Igbos leave Nigeria, Nigeria will not just survive. As a matter of fact, Nigeria, you will see Nigeria, you will wonder if you're looking at Nigeria. Think about the issue we are having with all these fake things. Let's there's fake drug everywhere, billions, trillions of naira industry. People are dying. Are there good people? Of course, many. But we're not talking about people now, we're talking about the structure. And small thing, I'll be hearing structure of criminality. Baby food, thank you. Kidney problem. People, young men are beginning to have dialysis sessions. On top of what? Because you want to make money. I know you cannot talk. Oh, if you leave, something will happen to Nigeria. No, if you leave, you'll be fine. We have documents dating back to the 1940s on this matter of fake drugs. Do people in other places do fake things? Of course, it's a human thing. It's terrible, but if you notice a culture that it becomes a, not only is it a recurring thing, it also is something that you cannot speak against. Then people have to speak up. God rest the soul of Professor Dora Queenly. That's one of the best humans. I don't care about ethnicity. She's one of the best human beings I ever lived. Dora Queenly. What did she get for it? For the work she did with NAFDAC. What's all this nonsense? Everybody just saying, you are now trying to rewrite history to just I beg you. Meanwhile, that's everything I've said right now. That's not even what I came here to talk about. This is what I really came back to talk on. He said that we have to, in fact, let me play it so that it doesn't look like I'm making it up. Give me a second. I'm going to find it and then I'll play it. So everything I've said right now is just to no, they didn't murder her, but they attempted to kill her. There was a time she was shot at and the bullet went through her gilly. She talked about it. You can find these things online. There was a time they went to her son's school. They went to her son's school and said, oh, is she your mother? And the boy had to say she's the aunt or something. Essentially denied her. And that was the only reason that boy was not kidnapped. But her husband, after she had passed, see what happened to her husband. You all know. But no, you can't say anything about that because you know this is one of the reasons there is problem in the Southeast. There's this conspiracy of silence. Now you are so silent you can't go home. I said that was just part. It's not even part anything. I want to talk about what I really wanted to talk about now. But everything I said right now is very, very important. Let nobody feel that they hold Nigeria in any kidney. If you are in Nigeria, you will be blessed. Do I want you to stay? It will be lovely to have you around. Can I live without you? I cannot live without you. I don't. You're not my wife. Even wives, you have to have the sense to be able to say things that you could do. The truth is, if you leave right now, everybody will be fine. Your absence will be felt for maybe 1 week. You don't produce these things, you import them, and importation is actually detrimental to the economy. You're a middleman. You are buying and selling. It's trade. It's not business, it's trade. There are three different things I think we use. They are the same thing. There are three, and they mean three different things, but we're not going to talk about it today. But you can research it on your own. Three things: trade, business, commerce. Those three things mean three different things. And a trader is not necessarily a business person. And commerce is bigger than trade and business itself.
That was how messy the North became. Because you can't trace the Eastern problem without taking it back to the pogrom of 66. You cannot trace the quest for Biafra without tracing it back to the pogrom of 66. Is Biafra right? I don't think so.
That's the point. See, let's help Igbo people and help ourselves. All this history, half history, is not going to help anybody. Do you need to go to 66 to understand why they want Biafra? Yes. Must you stop there? Don't ever stop at 66. In fact, and by the way, when you say pogrom, you're talking about July, August, September. Don't stop there. You have to go to January. In fact, don't stop in 66. Go back to 1944. And let me say something. I may sound a bit harsh, but I sincerely feel for those who died. I hope you can see my heart. I wish you could see it. I really feel terrible about it. And those who died, listen, no matter what we say, no matter the books we read, nothing would ever justify the killings of those people. A lot of them died, and nothing would ever justify the killings of the Igbos. But it is not a sole victim narrative. The Igbos killed Northerners as well, and nobody likes to talk about it for some weird reason, because it reduces the weight of the pain of the Igbos when you mention that they're also capable of killing people. Listen, everybody is capable of evil. Every one of us. Whatever is holding you back is what is holding you back. For some of us, is love for God, or fear of God, or fear of retribution, or fear of going to prison. But that you're not capable of that thing, you can do anything. And guess what? People did terrible things. Igbos were killed in different parts of the north, and it is shameful and it's a blight on Nigeria's history. But Igbos killed Northerners, thousands of them as well, and their story should also be told. What would that do? It takes you away from a victim mindset into a place where you are thinking of reconciliation. You cannot spend the last 60 years just shouting, see what you did to me, because nobody has told you what you did to them. I put out a statement on this thing a few days ago. People insulted insulted me. I was sending them straight to their parents, because I cannot come on Twitter and be trading words with 20-year-olds. Myself and your parents are age mates. So as they are insulting me, I'm sending them to their parents. Go and ask your parents. I'll just say parents, because I was even trying. Ask your parents. My mates are your father and mother. Go and ask them this stupid question. You just come on and say you are mad. You are describing your parents. That's my own. I won't curse you, but I will remind you that your family meetings are held on trees. Me, I will tell you. Is rubbish. Once you mention something that goes against the narrative, they curse you out. Me, I'll send you straight to your father and mother. Internet, I'll send you home. The point is that most people's parents refuse to raise them right, place them on a diet of lies and falsehood. Then they grow up and constitute nuisance on everybody, and then you have Yoruba elders who are also perpetuating it by repeating those things as though it's true. You can acknowledge the pain, and any sane person has to, or else even you, maybe you are now Hitler, you must acknowledge people's pain, but you cannot allow that pain to become the basis of manipulation. We are being blackmailed in this country. And let's talk to what Pastor Matthew said, by the way. Again, to be clear, I hold him in high esteem. I respect him. He's a fantastic preacher of the word. I've learned from him. I remember the Eagle series, early 2000s, winning ways in the UK. It was, all over Nigeria. Fantastic man of God. But we're discussing history. He said that you cannot trace the Eastern problem without taking it back to the pogrom. By the way, the word pogrom is also something I don't use very loosely, and that's why every time I write the word pogrom, as far as Nigeria is concerned, I put it in inverted commas, and that's because it's the claim by the Igbos that it was a pogrom. By the way, before we continue, what is a pogrom? We use words very loosely in this country. Some people say they are being marginalized. Everybody just talks rubbish. Some people say there was a massacre in Lekki. Yet there's no body. There's no physical. There's nothing to prove. But people just use any words. Oh, there's a massacre. What does it mean? Again, let me make it very clear. The fact that I'm asking these questions does not mean that somehow I think it was cool that Igbos died. It can never be right. It's a terrible thing, and nothing can ever justify it. However, if you live your life based on what happened, you are just like every other regular human being. You have to go beyond what? Ask other questions. There are 4 main questions that every sane person should ask about in life. What is the least one? Because you don't have to be smart to ask the question. What happened? Kilo shele. What is it? Anybody can ask what. But that's the lowest level. What happened? You have to ask when. You have to ask how. And you have to ask why. And if you hate those other three questions and just stay with the what happened, you will perpetually remain a victim in life. Forget Nigerian history in life. Oh, see what happened. See what happened. When did it happen? Why are you asking me that question? Okay, let me tell you. It happened in July. And how about January? No, you cannot talk about January because just stay with what happened. Because now, when has contextualized the issue, it's happening in July. Okay, it's bad. What happened is bad. But it happened in July. What led to that? Then you have to now trace it back to at least, if you don't want to travel too far, at least January. Now the topic has changed. Then you now ask question of, in fact, it's about 5 questions. How did it happen? I said 4. They're actually 5. How did it happen? There's another question I did not add earlier. Who made it happen? There's what, there's when, there's how, there's who. Who made this thing happen? Who are the actors in this story? And lastly, the most important question, why did it happen? And if we start with the why of the killings in July, again, not justifiable ever. Nothing can make it make sense. Just saying, because it's important. But why did it happen? It was retaliation. That's why. Somebody asked me a question yesterday. How can you say that hundreds of people will die because they kill some people in January? How does that even make sense? The question is not, does it make sense? The question is, why did it happen? If you slap a person and they hit you with a club, maybe it's a lesson for you to stop slapping people all over the place indiscriminately. You are slapping those you don't know what they are capable of doing. You just go to the street now, slap anybody. Maybe even say a person who looks slender, is not properly built, doesn't look like he goes to the gym. You've seen the big broad-chested guys, he didn't touch them, or you found this lanky guy, he slapped him. Meanwhile, Dada Oleja, she won't allow Buro to Bekele. Our bro Dada has one huge club, hits you on the back of your head. You now feel bad. Now say, that's not commensurate. Next time, don't slap people indiscriminately. That's the lesson. It does not mean that it is good that he hit you, but if you had not slapped them, they would not have had to hit you. That's the lesson. What should we tell the people that hit you? We take the club from them. And then we also deal with the issue, by the way. We don't just sweep it under the carpet. But what Nigeria has done in the last 60 years or so is to be talking about the one that hit somebody with a club, not acknowledging the fact that the one that went around slapping didn't slap one person. No, it just so happened that that's the one that hit him. He's been slapping people like his Christmas gift, just giving Christmas gift of slapping people all over the place. Here's the issue. Somebody says slap people, say na prank, they should not retaliate. I see some of those things on social media. Because of this content, we've been doing a lot of Facebook, because I have to also post on Facebook. So in posting, you will see other people's stuff. I'm noticing a lot of pranks from Nigerians. They will do things and they say, it's a prank. One guy, which went to prank somebody. That one beat Omuigi. Went to do prank of money ritual. That one found one log, not a plank, log, a log of wood. Picked it up from the floor and hit this prankster. I'll say on a spinal cord. I'm glad the guy did not die or anything. Àárín ẹ̀yìn ẹ̀ ló fi sí, ó da owó méjèèjì, ó dàbò lẹ́yìn ni. Whether you are doing prank or not, ó ti hit ẹni, and he's not even going to, you are going to be the one to even apologize. I mean, it's the prankster that will say apologize. I'll say, má bínú, mo kàn ṣeré ni. Ó ti máa ṣe é léṣe kó tó mọ̀ pé òun ṣe prank. You can't go around the place being just constituting nuisance and then now begin to cry when people retaliate. Doesn't mean the retaliation is okay, but take responsibility. And Igbos do not take responsibility as a group. I'm not saying there are no individuals that take responsibility. They are good Igbos, as a group, they don't. It's everybody else's fault. If in January, you organize by the way, the coup was organized in 65, not in 66. And I've mentioned this a number of times. If you read the special branch report of 1966, it makes it very clear. It was not just soldiers who planned that coup. Civilians were involved. And one name they mentioned there was the Premier of the Eastern Region, Michael Okpara. Everyone who planned that coup, when they were thinking of one place to go after they struck at Lagos, the only place they thought about was Enugu. Whether it was Okafo, Ifajuna, Anuforo, Adewale Demega, everybody went to Enugu. It's in that document. It's not, thank God, they leaked that document some years ago. Now all of us have it. And if you don't have it, can check Redomi Global. You'll find it on Telegram. And yes, it was an Igbo coup. I know I will have another session to say that. I've said it before, but I'm saying it again. It was an Igbo coup. It was an Igbo coup. Every evidence points to that. People don't like to say it because I think of one Nigeria. One Nigeria cannot be built on falsehood. It was an Igbo coup. Acknowledge what you did wrong so that you don't keep making the same mistakes. Why do you think? Let me ask you a question right now. Today, as it stands, mention the ethnicity that wants a coup in Nigeria. Write in the comment section. Please. One of all the ethnicities in Nigeria, one ethnicity that you can be sure wants to have a coup in Nigeria. Please, which group is that? As a group, I'm not saying all the people there do it, but the group that wants coup in Nigeria right now, I won't mention the name, just write in the comment section. Exactly. Why? No lessons were learned from what happened back in the day. Because you didn't acknowledge, you didn't say it, so they didn't have to acknowledge anything. So no lessons were learned, therefore they're going to repeat the same mistakes. That's the issue. You're trying to hide it because you're doing one Nigeria. Listen, I'm Yoruba. When we are done with all of these things, we're going to discuss Balogun Oderinlo. The book is, it's here. Balogun Oderinlo by Niya Borishade. We're going to discuss this book. We know who messed up in our wars. Whether it's the one with Fulani. The Yoruba people that talk about Mbeboje, Fulani, they were caught and beheaded. We tell that story to ourselves. Kiriji War, we know what to say. Where Ibadan overdid themselves, we acknowledge it. How Ekiti had to do what Ekiti had to do, who will say it? What happened in the Magbon War of 1892? Ijebu, British, Egba, Ibadan. We say what everybody did. Not to condemn them, but you have to, you can't be hiding these things. Because if you do, nobody learns anything. Therefore, they are condemned to repeating the history. That's not how to build a nation. Say one Nigeria. That's not one Nigeria. That's falsehood. And it's dangerous. So that in 2025, 60 odd years or thereabout, after the first coup, as a matter of fact, exactly 60 years after the first coup was planned, you see people from an ethnicity that dominated that coup who still wants to have another coup because nobody told them anything from the one that happened. And I'm not saying Igbos are the ones that have been planning coups all around. I didn't even say Igbo. Now you write inside comment section. I'm not saying that the ones that planned all the coups in Nigeria, but the main one that changed the trajectory of Nigeria was planned in 65 and was executed in 66. And it was not the first one. It was actually the second one. The first one was in 64. It was planned by Ojukwu. And if you want the books, let me quickly say them. I mentioned them so it doesn't look like I'm just making things up. Read Reminiscences by David Ejo. Read Emeka by Frederick Forsyth. Read Beckon to Serve by Shehu Shagari. Read The Forgotten Document of the Civil War by Ode of Famon. Read those four. What happened in 64? What happened between Azikiwe and Ojukwu? What was the plan to topple the government in favor of the Igbos in 64? Why did they stop? Who changed the game? Why did not do it anymore? Why did the 65 event come to be? Who was part of it? Who were the officers? Who were the civilians? How come every Igbo person that was a civilian had an alibi and an excuse? Every one of them had coincidences. Zeke just fell ill and he traveled to be treated in October of 65. He didn't come back until February of 66. We can sickness with that. I mean, may God give all of us healing and health in Jesus' name. Just conveniently left the country. The Minister of Transport, Mbadiwe, read the book by Frederick Forsyth, Biafran Story. He said, Mbadiwe ran across the open lawn and he ran into the residence of the president. And that was the only place the coup plotters did not think to search. Are we joking? And then you talk about what's this man's name? What's this man's name? Okpara. Oh, like the older man that did a video. I'll still do that video. Maybe on Wednesday we'll respond to that video. Said, oh, American ambassador came to visit him. There was no American anywhere near Enugu. On January 15, 1966, there was no American. It was someone from Cyprus. Archbishop Macarius. And he did not move his entire life into Enugu. He came, he saw and conquered and left. When he left, what happened? There was no plan for Enugu. There was no plan for Benin. And the only reason is that both places had Igbo premiers. Read the special branch report of 66. You will see these things there. All the officers, no officer from the east was killed, by the way, just to make it very clear. If you say, once you mention Nzogu, you start hearing that it's from the Midwest, it's not really Igbo. When you say no Igbo officer was killed, you say, but Unegbe was killed. Unegbe was from the Midwest as well. You had a retinue of officers. You didn't think to kill any of them. Hausa had 5, they lost 4. Yorubas had 6, we lost 2. And I've said this several times. The planner of the coup was not Nzogu. And the reason Igbo say it's not Igbo is because they assume he's the one that planned it, and they hate the idea of responsibility. Say, oh, he's not really. Oh, Nzogu. No, he's not really Igbo. Again, Nzogu is Igbo. He's from Okpana in present-day Delta State, and there's nothing wrong with him being Igbo. And I've said it several times. Of all the people that got involved in that coup, himself and Ademwega were the only real revolutionaries I can talk on. They were the only real revolutionaries. And what he did was terrible, killing a man that I could almost call him his benefactor, the Sardauna. But again, zeal without knowledge, or the young man who wasn't thinking straight. But the ones that planned an ethnic coup, they succeeded. They succeeded, Monokai. They succeeded. Everything they wanted to see, they did. They saw it. And they had 2 plans. Either to have an Igbo become the head of Nigeria, that's an Igbo civilian, or to have an Igbo military officer become the head. And they got what they wanted. And if you think I'm lying, read the book I mentioned earlier. Who was going to be the head of Nigeria? It was actually Mbadiwe. That's why when he wrote his stupid book in 1989, calling Awolowo a tribalist, I was like, are these people drunk? He wrote a flimsy excuse of a book called The Rebirth of a Nation. Rebirthing nonsense. You, that on the 14th you had a meeting, was a Friday. On the 14th you had a meeting with Tafawa Balewa. On the 15th you were trying to take his place. On the 16th you were crying that where is he? People must think that, and this is the problem, we don't know what happened. That's why we always, and again, to be fair, a lot of young Igbos don't know either. Why should they know? So that you can taunt them? No. Not so you can taunt them, not so you can insult them, not so you can denigrate. No. So that we can all learn, so that we can all heal, and we'll never repeat those things again. That's why people say things like never again. It's not never again in terms of I'll never forgive you. That's not the point. It's never make the same mistake again. They had we were looking for the prime minister on the 15th, the morning. Into the afternoon, they didn't find him. Said, we have to get the British to help us. The British said, we need you to write a letter. It has to be signed by the prime minister or an acting prime minister, somebody in that capacity. So what did they do? They reached out to the Senate president, who happened to be the acting president at the time. His name was Nwankwo Orizu. That one has another story. We'll talk about it some other time. Nwankwo Orizu refused to appoint Zanadip Charima, who, by the way, was a Kanuri man. And he was the most senior of all the parliamentarians in NPC. And NPC was a senior partner. NCNC was a junior partner. But guess what? NCNC said they wanted Kingsley Mbadiwe to become the prime minister. Of course, that made no sense. So what happened? A few hours later, they had guns pointing at them, telling them to give over power. And guess what happened? After they were made to give over power, the same one for reason now wrote a note and broadcast that they offered it, they transfer power willingly or voluntarily. Only for us to read the book by Shehu Shagari, who was in the room saying that we did not do it willingly. Then we now read Richard Akinjide's interview, and he said there was a gun. In fact, there were guns. The whole building was surrounded by soldiers, coming from a person that was supposed to quell the coup. Wasn't quelling any coup. Was taking advantage of the coup. You don't see. I can't say this is because if you are taking the one Nigeria, you don't want unity. We want unity based on truth. Ironsi knew about it. He said it, and we have reports of those who were in the room with him when he said what he said. There was Gowon who was there. This is the book. If you want to read it, it's called Gowon, the biography of a soldier statesman. Read it. You see what he said, what Ironsi said. Read the book by the first commander of Biafra military, Hilary M. Njoku. He was there. He wrote a book. The book is called A Tragedy Without Heroes. He wrote what Ironsi said. Then read Reminiscences by David Ejo. He was also there. Ironsi pointed a gun at him and asked him if it was for him or against him. And David had to say, you think they are this victim of everybody. And then you say, let us start from the Pogrom. Why should I start at the Pogrom? That doesn't make sense. You are starting with the effect, not with the cause. Cause and effect. Go to the root of the issue and ask relevant questions. Look at the actors, look at the characters. And by the way, what happened in August? Unacceptable. But guess what? You cannot kill all the leaders of other regions apart from your own people. You didn't touch any leader, any politician from your region. Not a strand of hair was touched on their head. Apparently those ones are saints and anointed ones. Officers, you had so many officers, you didn't see anyone that you should be killing among them. You went to now kill 4 out of 5 senior officers that did not have at the time. And the only one that was not killed, the only reason he was not killed was because he returned to Nigeria a day before. He returned on Saturday. The coup was on Sunday. That was Gowon. All the senior officers were Yoruba that they could reach They killed them. Ademulegun, Shodende. And by the way, just in case people think I'm making it up, the North, you can recite these names: Kar Mohammed, Memalari, Lagema, and Pam. Those were the 4 they killed from the North. Yoruba, they killed 2 out of 6. Some were not even in the country, thankfully. The one that said, oh, one of the other senior guys, Victor Banjo, who was doing, okay, one Nigeria, let's see how we can help our brother, was reaching out to the north, to the west, to the east, everybody, let's galvanize. Irosi is the Oga now. He was doing that on Sunday. Monday morning, talking about me when I'm making money. Monday morning, no sit at home. He went to the office of his Oga. What's up? That's how 2 people say, we like this, your gun, no. Took the gun from his holster. You read the book by Adeto Ogoshe. The book is called A Break in the Silence. They were going to kill him. According to that book, the only reason they didn't kill him was because there was somebody, a foreigner, in the at the reception, a guest. So what did they do? They picked the man that was running all over the place yesterday. Saturday, Sunday, was running all around the place, making things happen for you. By Monday, you are locking him up in a ship. From there to Kirikiri. From there to Ikorekpene. From Ikorekpene to Enugu. That's Victor Banjo. The other ones were not around. That's why they were not killed. You cannot have this kind of stories and then you now did all kinds of things. You fill the entire place with Igbo. You abolished regionalism. You have young people today in 2025 who would die on the hill that Iransi did not abolish regionalism. Even in the face of evidence, they will say that he did not do it. Why? They were raised to hate the idea of responsibility. Abolish regionalism, unify the civil service, began to transfer people everywhere, take over everywhere. And by the way, you know what? I want to read an article. I know some people want to come up, but don't worry. It's Monday. We're gonna have some time for you to speak. Just give me a minute. I want to read you an article. This is from an Igbo person, so you know it's even good. When they were ready to deal with folks later on, it was terrible, and like I said, it was bad. But you cannot act like, you know, whatever you do, I can't share that shake. Where did I put that document to? I saw it earlier. Umbo Mario. Monday morning talking about me when I'm making money. The way this is come to my head. So I'm like, yes, this person's name is Professor Iechukwu Madubike. I don't know. I cannot speak for the veracity of it, but I've seen it in different places and I've seen the man's picture attached. And this is what he said. This is simply the reason why Hausas, Yorubas, Edo, and the Niger Delta man will not trust the Igbo man at the center, and why the Hausas may not want to relinquish power in Nigeria. Any historian, everything he wrote is not correct, by the way. If he's wrong, I will let you know. Not because I know everything, but because we should not be spreading misinformation. Thank you. Any historians in the house to vet? Okay, so he says, do you know that when Tafawa Balewa was Prime Minister of Nigeria, Chief of Army Staff was from SE, Southeast, Chief of Naval Education Minister, many other ministers from the Southeast, Parliament President, Unilag VC, that's Primary President was Nwafor-Rizu, Unilag VC was Njoku, University of Ibadan VC, that was Kenneth Dike. The North resisted the same at ABU. By the way, ordinary change VC of Unilag, they call you Bible tribalist. May God forgive your elders if you are able here. You had the VC of Ibadan, who was not the most senior or the most qualified. There were Yoruba people who were better qualified, e.g. Professor Joseph. You put Igbo there. You went to Unilag, you put Igbo there. You were going to do the same thing in ABU. What kind of audacity is that? He says ambition. Okay. Kind of ambition that gets people killed. You now move away from there. They now said, oh, this man has served his term of 3 years. I don't even know if I'm going to read everything because it's too long. This man has served his term of 3 years. Now I want to put a Yoruba man there. Oh, Yoruba people are tribalists. You are sitting in Ibadan. You just want to insult someone else in. He has served his term. No, you can renew that term if you prove to us that you're not tribalist. And there's some of those young men I've heard people who have watered down history. One of those people was called Kayode Adams. You can read about him. Kayode Adams. He took a knife and stabbed Professor Bibaku, the Yoruba man who was supposed to be the VC of Unilag. Stabbed him. A Yoruba boy who has been brainwashed with all this stupid nonsense they call history to make people feel good. Because we are one Nigeria. You have a Yoruba boy who is doing Yoruba, but he will be an obedient today. Took a knife and stabbed a professor. Was taken to court. He then said he was insane. He must have been insane. They sentenced him to Yaba. He went to Yaba. Eventually came out. Guess what he did? He himself killed himself at Bar Beach. Much later. And that's the end of the that will make you become insane in the way you even relate with your own ethnicity, because you don't want to be seen as tribalistic. Guess what? When Eninjoku was removed from UNILAG, guess what happened? It was taken to UNN. It was the first indigenous VC of UNN. Was the same man that left UNILAG. Why did he not bring a Yoruba man to come and become the VC of University of Nigeria Nsukka? Why? Or why not? Let anybody gaslight you with all this half-baked Nigeria history, that's not your fault though. Let me just read a few things. So he said, out of all the most senior officers in Nigeria, Southeast has Eastern region, actually not Southeast, there was no Southeast at the time, had 37, none was killed. 8 from the, by the way, no officer from the East was killed. Unegbe was from the Midwest, I should be saying. Author Unegbe was killed. It was Igbo, to be clear, it was Igbo. Some authors, I would say there was a personal vendetta between Anuforo and him and himself. They had an issue. I don't know, but it is what it is. Nigerian government said it was because he was the quartermaster and he had the keys to the armory. But other authors have said there was a personal vendetta. Make of that whatever you will. But the Eastern region had 37, none was killed. The North had 8. They went to 8 much later. They were not 8 at the time. All of them were killed. Not all of them were killed. Only 5. Not only 4 out of 5 were killed. 10 from the West. It was not 10 from the West. It was 6 from the West. 2 were killed. Ironsi imposed a unitary system of government on the country so that everything can belong to a region who snatched it. Guess where Ironsi got the idea from? He got it from NCNC politicians. How do I know it? How do I know this? Read Why We Struck by Adewale Ademoyega. Then read Awolowo's autobiography, Papa's autobiography, Awo, the autobiography of Obafemi Awolowo. And read Nigerian history. There are other books. When did the idea of unitary system begin to gain traction in Nigeria? 1951. Where did it come from? Your guess is as good as mine. 15 years later, they implemented that thing through, you know what? Through, what's his name? Ironsi. So the unitary system was the Igbo plan. It was not, when we say NCNC, we're just being respectful. It wasn't even an NCNC plan, it was an Igbo plan. By an ethnicity converted to an Igbo party, used to dominate even the Yoruba people in the party, to the point where after Zik, the person that should have been the next, the vice president that should have been the president of the party, his name is Father Unsi. You can check these things. They bypassed him and went to pick an Igbo man who was already the head of the region in the Eastern region, Michael Okpara. But no, you are the Yoruba person. You are a tribalist. You are a tribalist. Party wey no be your own. No. However, Macaulay was the founder. Well, was the first president. It was a conglomerate or an amalgamation of sorts of 4 different groups. 3 of them clearly Yoruba. 1 was mixed. The 3, there was What's this party group called? Lagos Market Women Association, led by Alimoto Pelewura. The remnants of NNDP, that was from 1993. Then the Student Union, and then now the TUC. Student Union was made of mostly Yoruba people. Then you had TUC, Trade Union Congress. That was how NCNC was born. Zik becomes the head, and the only thing he had in mind, 1946, the only plan that Zik had was how to use that party to dominate Yoruba land so that he would be the one to head it. 1951, he tried it. He won an election to represent Lagos in Ibadan, a regional capital. He moved to Ibadan and then told them he wanted to be the head of everybody. They said no. That's how Awolowo became tribalist. Zik wrote something in his autobiography. I find it ridiculous. The book was published in 1907, and I'll quote what he said. He said, I was under the impression that the NCNC will get 43 votes, or 46, thereabout. The point I'm trying to make, he said, I was under the impression. How can you say people are tribalists because you were under the impression that you had won? I was under the impression that we had won the election, but they ended up getting 23 votes. And because he got 23 votes, everybody else was a tribalist because he was under the impression that he won. Read the book. It's called My Odyssey. That's his autobiography. He wrote it in 1970. I was under the impression that we won. That's the basis of everybody being tribalist. If you don't open the door for them, then that means that you're a tribalist. You know what, guys? Because I said it, and I think I had a bump somewhere. I want to read to you. Don't worry, we're all here together. All of these things do not in any way. I can show him both alone. Do not in any way mean that we should lose empathy for people. Still be compassionate. Don't let your heart be hardened. Something bad happens to people, acknowledge it, but don't let people use that thing and weaponize your empathy to the point where they not ask you to be paying for waiting, collect. This is my Odyssey. Towards the end of 1951, I stood for another election. This is from Zik. This time to the Western House of Assembly. To those who have been insulting me and said Zik did not go to Western House of Assembly, he was a federal. No. The constitution we used at the time was McPherson Constitution. You first go to the region. The region Lagos were won by NCNC. 5 of them moved to Ibadan. 3 of them were supposed to now go and represent the area in the federal parliament. That became an issue later, but we'll talk about that. And Zik also didn't make that because he was not a good leader. Every book says the same thing about that. This is Zik himself speaking. Towards the end of 1951, I stood for another election, this time to the Western House of Assembly, as a representative of Lagos under the McPherson Constitution, and I topped the poll. He didn't, but it's okay. The NCNC was under the impression that it had won. Actually, he was the one who was under the impression, because there's no way a party will be under the impression that they won when they had no members to even field. It's not today's topic, but maybe another day I will recommend a book by Abegunde. His name is Abegunde. Where he broke down that thing. I think we did a video on it on the channel. If you go and look for 1954, Bushiori's on YouTube. Look for 1954. What Zik did in 54? I read some things from that book there. But let me read what he said. The NCNC was under the impression that it had won the election with 43 members out of 80. As it turned out, 20 of the legislators who were known or regarded as NCNC members or supporters or sympathizers decided to align themselves with another party. They got 23 votes, like I said, but in their minds they were under the impression that they had 43. Meanwhile, some of the other 20 he's talking about were not just members, members, supporters, sympathizers, whose name you did not even present to the electoral body before the election. That's another matter. We'll talk about it some other time. But the point I'm trying to make is that kind of mindset, where you say, I slept, I dreamt, I won, I woke up, he woke up, he lost. Therefore, all of us are tribalists. That's the mindset that people say carry. And the funny thing is, I even wrote book, they will not read it. And someone said, like they say about the kitty. Yes, like they say about the kitty. If you don't vote for the Lord and Savior, you are a tribalist. Bunch of clowns. Where were we? Let me read something from this thing. We're going to bring people up very soon. Back to what I was saying. Yeah. Pastor Matthew. If you want to talk about Biafra, there's a book you should read. You can get it free of charge on Redomi Global. The book is called Ojuku's Rebellion and World Opinion by Nebo Graham Douglas. The truth, and that's not the only source, but that one you should read, is that the people who died really primarily, and this is not to say that the people that kill people did not did well. Folks who died because of one man's ambition. And the day Igbos wake up to that reality is the day they begin to have freedom. Until then, if it takes 100 years, that's 100 years of captivity, mental self-immolation, self-captivity. Nobody can change that one. It was a man's ambition. That's one. Number two, when I put this statement out the other day, somebody went out and said, oh, but also Igbos were killed by the Northerners. And I said, it is true. But the Igbos also killed Northerners. And he said, it's a lie. I said, okay. The number of sources I can provide. I'm going to read only one here. But I'll just quickly tell you the titles. Crisis and Conflicts in Nigeria by A.H.M. Kirk Green. The Nigerian Civil War by John Desenjo. And Sunset in Biafra by Leche Amadi. This is what really happened. A coup took place in January. An Igbo coup took place in January. We have to be very specific. An Igbo coup took place in January, unalived everybody's leaders but Igbo leaders. People did not do anything. January ends, February ends, March ends, April ends. Nobody did anything. May, they promulgated Decree 34. By the way, that decree did not have any committee sitting on it to even propose it. It was one-man committee. And the name of the man is Francis Nwokedi. Somebody with his surname had the effrontery to counter me on Twitter. I was like, your name rings a bell. It rings a unitary decree bell. You cannot be carrying that kind of surname and be insulting people. It is well. Anyway, one-man committee, one-man mopo. They gave us unitary decree. That was when people began to fight for the first time in the north. That was in May. But it was, settled. It was bad, by the way. A lot of Igbos were killed. But somehow they settled everything. By June, Ojukwu was already trying to break Igbos out of Nigeria. Not June of 67 or June of 1966. And this is how the author puts it. On or before June 7, 1966, Ojukwu began to talk about pulling the eastern region out of Nigeria. And the person who said it is was his own Attorney General, the Attorney General of the Eastern Region, Nebo Graham Douglas. It's in the book I mentioned earlier, Ojuku's Rebellion and World Opinion. July, the Northerners struck counter coup. They killed a lot of Igbo officers. And then they began to kill Igbo people. Terrible thing, should not have happened. But they said it was counter coup. We call it Northern counter coup today. And they did that in retaliation for what happened to their own men and all the tauntings they got from Igbos, whether in the streets, in the parks, in their offices, and even in the military. That started in Abeokuta spread to Ibadan, where Ironsi and the Western Region governor was killed. That's Adekule. They're going to do it in Enugu as well. But there was a man called Baba Ogunewe. He's Igbo, but he was loved by northern officers. So somehow I was able to get them not to drop the key to the armory, and at the end they agreed that the northerners and the Igbos will guard the armory together, and that's why they didn't fight. Meanwhile, Ojukwu ran away. He ran away from the government house, went to the police headquarters in Enugu. Then he ran 69 miles away from that place to Onitsha. It was while he was in Onitsha that they carried phone. He was now calling Babafemi Ogundipe, stand your ground. The eastern region is behind you. He was hiding under a shoebox in Onitsha. So why didn't Ogundipe stand up for himself? The one that was facing gun. You were hiding. You are the one that has mouth. Like I always say, that man could run. Now, while all of that was going on, Igbos were being killed in different parts. Again, nothing can justify. I mean, not even the killing of the Sardauna can justify it, but it helps you understand why they did it. The Igbos started running home. Not all, but some of them began to travel. It was terrible. People had to live sometimes without anything. When they got home, they told their people what happened in the north. The people heard the news and got mad. They began to kill northerners in the east. And at this point, I'm going to read something to you. But you know why they also did it? It's not because they are evil people. They killed their brothers who ran to the east, and then this is what happened. I'm going to read from Crisis and Conflict in Nigeria by A.H.M. Green. In Enugu, the attack on northerners started on 15th of August. Igbo soldiers led the attack. About 630 northerners were killed in the province, while 27 were seriously wounded. A northern boy 7 years old. By the way, I didn't read about the Igbos because we all know the story. Do you get? We all know the story of what happened with the Igbos. It's bad, gory, terrible. But we've heard the story a billion times. This one, most likely you have not heard it once. So let's take it step by step. In Enugu, the attack on northerners started on the 15th of August. Igbo soldiers led the attack. About 630 northerners were killed in the province, while 27 were seriously wounded. A northern boy, 7 years old, was publicly slaughtered in the street by uniformed Igbo soldiers in the presence of another northerner who was dressed like an Igbo and was thus able to escape detection. In Onitsha province, 30 northerners were killed and 6 seriously injured. In Owerri too, where northerners had lived for long and intermarried with the Igbos, they were attacked and killed in cold blood, despite assurances from the Igbo elders. One northerner who escaped from Owerri was Alhaji Sabo, who was born there, his father having settled there 70 years ago. His father, chief of the Hausa community in Owerri, had been a customary court judge there for 37 years. He was killed at the beginning of the organized attack on northerners in the presence of his son, who later managed to escape to Kaduna. In September, a very large number of those northerners who had managed to reach Oboloafo on their way to the north were murdered. This atrocity was witnessed by some foreigners on the Otokpo-Onitsha road on their way to western Nigeria. Listen to what I'm about to read. And these eyewitnesses are believed to be one of the sources of information for the foreign broadcast of the atrocities. I'm going to come back to the foreign broadcast of the atrocities. I'll tell you the first foreign broadcast, where it came from. I'll read that later. I'll tell you later. In Port Harcourt, a house with a large number of northern women in hiding was attacked. The women were raped and beaten to death. Igbos singing war songs slaughtered every northerner they could find in the street, and a number of those who were in hiding were killed quietly by their neighbors. During the evacuation, a train driven by an expatriate carrying about 2,000 northerners from Port Harcourt was stopped at Imo River by Igbo soldiers. 2,000 northerners. Suddenly, Igbos, armed with deadly weapons, rushed out from the bush and attacked the passengers. Every adult male Northerner on the train was killed and the body thrown into the river, while children and the young women were captured and taken into slavery. The few survivors were eventually admitted into Otopo and Makodi hospitals. While all this was happening, some foreigners, especially at Obolofo, saw what happened. The news traveled to Cotonou, Radio Cotonou, Benin Republic. Radio Cotonou then broadcast it from Benin Republic, Dahomey at the time. The news then got to Kaduna. Kaduna Radio then translated it into English and Hausa because those was broadcast in French. Folks in the streets of Kaduna and other parts of North Nigeria then heard the news that their own people were being killed in the eastern region, thousands of them. They heard it in English and in Hausa. They then began to kill more Igbos. And this went on until probably the end of the year. By October, the Eastern region published a pamphlet. I'm going to read something from that in the book by John de Senjo. But I think I should start from a particular... Let me go back just a bit because it's important to also acknowledge the evil that happened to the Igbos. This book is called The Nigerian Civil War by John de Senjo. While nothing can excuse or condone the terrible wrong done to the Igbos in the north, Ojukwu, the Eastern government, and later Biafra supporters played an irresponsible numbers game with the death toll of the October massacres, converting it into one of the hoariest of the Civil War's myth. Ojukwu himself escalated the figure on 4 separate occasions, without apparently anyone noticing. In the foreword of the Eastern Region's booklet, Pogrom, he spoke of, quote, more than 7,000 dead. That's what he said. More than 7,000 Igbo people were killed. There were thousands of the Northerners, but we've already read about those ones. Well, not so much, just one source. There are other sources. Trains also carry a lot of dead people to the north, by the way. What also happened to the Easterners returning from the north. It was terrible on all fronts. But it says here that Ojukwu, the Eastern government, and later Biafran supporters played an irresponsible numbers game. When they first brought out the document around October, towards the end of the year, they published a booklet called Pogrom. The booklet was published by the Eastern region, and Ojukwu wrote there that more than 7,000 people died. At the Aburi conference in January 1967, long after all the casualty returns were in, he said 10,000 had died. By the time the war was underway in 67, these had leapt up to 30,000, the figure most often used by Biafran propaganda, e.g. Chino Achebe, e.g. Frederick Forsyth. They used the 30,000 figure. And I'll take that again. By the time the war was underway, these had leapt to 30,000, the figure most often used by Biafran propaganda and most often accepted unthinkingly by outsiders, including I hasten to add myself. The author also believed that. He said 30,000 is the figure most often used by Biafran propaganda and most often accepted unthinkingly by outsiders, including I hasten to add myself. And then in the Ahira Declaration, Biafra's Blueprint for Revolution, published in June 1969, he claims 50,000 were killed. The true figure will probably never be known, but most reliable estimates converge on something between 6,000 and 8,000. Although Ojukwu's Aburi figure might just be within the realms of possibility, several hundred Northerners were killed in reprisals in the east. Somebody wrote me a message yesterday and said, over 30,000 Igbos were killed. I said, listen, Igbos were killed. Unfortunate, it was terrible, but where did you get this number from? He couldn't answer. So I told him where he got it from. Listen, the way propaganda works is this: because you have to be a demon to not acknowledge that a lot of Igbos perished. Because you must have compassion as a human being. That's a human being that died. You must feel that as a human being with blood coursing through your veins. How people died. But because you are emotionally attached to that, which is normal and which is okay, you become susceptible, right, to manipulation. So you don't know when they have given you 4 different figures about a particular incident. That's what Ojukwu did about those who died. Did they die? Yes. Were there so many? Listen, if one person dies, I always say, I say this in a lot of, I say it a lot. A person dying is one too many. Nobody should even die to start with. Having said that, you can't be changing numbers every market day because you want to get us to, and he did, and he was successful. He propagandized the entire world that Europe believed him until they stopped believing when they saw what really happened. I will talk about that some other time. All of that to say this: we can acknowledge what happened to the Igbos. We can even show empathy and ask what can be done to make life better for them, like we did in 1970, by the way. Our parents sent money, sent clothes, sent food, not government, parents. Our parents returned buildings that in other parts of the country were taken over. We returned them to the eastern region to help take care of the people as we should. Can more be done? More was done, more can still be done. A lot of money was given to the eastern region. Forget 20 pounds, much more than that. Millions of pounds went into the eastern region. I've talked about it several times, not today. There was 3.5 billion, there was 5 million there was money in Azikiwe's bank that was put there just because of Igbo traders. Yet in 2025, they look at you and curse Awolowo. There's nobody in Nigerian political history that curses Awolowo that will ever do good in life. Especially if you benefited from his benevolence, you will not do good in life. And if you continue. You can have money, it will disappear in the middle of your days. Because there's no way his own people, his own children have to now apologize for what Ojukwu did and ran away with your money. But young Yoruba people have to be the ones to apologize and say, it's not really Awolowo's fault. Let us explain. I don't explain nothing to anybody. The man went beyond anything anybody should do in that case. Even America did not do what Awo made Gowon do. Not 1 cent was given to anybody in the South after the American Civil War. You do it in Nigeria, they'll say curse you. If you curse him, and your parents or anybody in your family benefited from his benevolence and you curse Awo, you are cursed. By the way, I take his matter very personally. Because if a people succeed in demonizing Awo, we are gone for Yoruba land. We are done for. That's a heritage that we guard. Not because if he did something wrong, we'll tell you what he did wrong, and we have said it several times. But on this matter, nobody comes close to his benevolence and his magnanimity, and people who should be grateful continue to curse him. They are cursed. I hope they change so they can be blessed. If you keep cursing him, you will be cursed. Your land also will feel it, because the things that they did for you, I wish I could read some of the things that they did. You know what, guys? Because somebody might watch this video, I will not watch another video that I've made. Let me read something to you from what Awolowo did, and then we'll call it a day. I'll bring people up. I'm going to read from, he had an interview in 1983. I'm telling myself where to go to for what I'm looking for. Campaign, 1983 campaign was in Abeokuta, that's the keyword. It was in Abeokuta, and he granted an interview. And let me say this: if you say this out of ignorance, you won't be cursed, but you have to get knowledge. If you know this thing, after knowing it, if you curse him, you are cursed. That's the only leeway I can give. Good. Good, 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 good. Where is some to you? I'm going to read from two books. Let me read this one first. This is our. During the war, I saw to it that the revenue which was due to the Igbo land, southeastern states they called it then, or East Central, by the way, sorry, at that time, East Central state. Again, East Central state. We call it Southeast now, but it was East Central state at the time. During the war, I saw to it that the revenue which was due to the Igbo land, at the time East Central state, I kept it. I saved the money for them. And when they were liberated, I handed over the money to them, millions. If I decided to do so, I could have kept the money away from them. And then when they took over, I saw to it that subvention was given to them at the rate of £990,000 every month. That's about £1 million a month. I didn't go to the executive council to ask for support or for approval because I knew if I went to the executive council at that time, the subvention would not be approved because there were more enemies in the executive council for the Igbos than friends. And since I wasn't going to take a percentage from what I was given to give them, and I knew I was doing what was right, I wanted the states to survive. I kept on giving the subvention, 990,000, almost £1 million every month. And I did that for other states, of course, southeastern states, North Central State, Kwara, and so on. But I did that for the Igbos. And when the war was over, I saw to it that the ACB got £3.5 million to start with. What's ACB? That's Azikiwe's bank, African Continental Bank. I saw to it that the ACB got £3.5 million to start with. Why? Is right here. This was distributed immediately, and I gave another sum of money. The attitude, I'll explain, you see the why very soon. The attitude of the experts, officials at the time of the ACB was that ACB should be closed down. And I held the view you couldn't close the ACB down because that is the bank that gives finance to the Igbo traders. And if you close it down, they will find it difficult to revive or to survive. So it was given. I did the same thing for the Cooperative Bank of Eastern Nigeria to rehabilitate all these places, and I saw to it as Commissioner for Finance that no obstacle was placed in the way of the Ministry of Economic Planning in planning for rehabilitation of the war-affected areas. Who talks about these things? Nobody. Just find a way to curse Awo. You cannot curse him and live a good life. I'll read something to you from Gowon's biography. Does this mean that more cannot be done? More can be done for Eastern region. More can be done for every part of Nigeria, to be fair. It's not even about Eastern region alone. Many places are without stuff. But the idea that nothing was done is a sin against God. I'm going to try and get that page. This book is called Gowon, the biography of a soldier statesman. I read some things that Nigeria did. Very quickly, shall. One of the most immediate tasks which confronted Gowon after the Civil War was that of organizing emergency relief supplies. By the way, there's a man I think we should have a session on. The man's name is, I've mentioned the name a number of times. I think I should do a session on him. And if you're Igbo here, please, from my heart, please read about Ukpabi Asika and look for this speech called Enough is Enough. You'll find it in Crisis and Conflict in Nigeria, Volume 1 or 2. One of those two. You'll find it there. The book was written by A.H.M. Kirk Green. Enough is Enough. I wish I could read it tonight, but there's no time. Maybe I'll do it on Wednesday if our conversation goes in that direction. But please read about him. He was the one that helped to start rebuilding the East Central State in 1968, even before the war was over. Although they hate him, but I hope this generation will not hate him. Why? So that he can heal. You cannot be an ingrate and survive life. Even if you have money, I'm happy wise, and you'll be spending it on needless disease because you are filled with hate for no reason. Let me mention something he did. So he was a lecturer in Ibadan, by the way. He had traveled for sabbatical. By the time he got back to Nigeria, to Ibadan, he couldn't go to the east. Eventually, he was recommended by Olusegun Obasanjo. If you read Obasanjo's book, My Command, you see how Obasanjo recommended him to go on. Then Gowon appointed him as administrator of the East Central State. We're not going to talk about him today. Many Igbos returned after the war to huge sums of money, which helped to resettle them. Let me go straight to the point what I was reading there. One of the most immediate tasks which confronted Gowon after the Civil War was that of organizing emergency relief supplies to the ordinary man emerging from the war. The federal government, through the National Commission for Rehabilitation and the Nigerian Red Cross Society, performed admirably well. They fed, clothed, and provided medical care for the ordinary citizen. Their work was made a bit easier by the cooperation of individual Nigerians and state governments all over the country who donated food, cash, and other forms of aid towards providing relief for their brothers. These are the same people that they curse today. Thus, by the end of the war, Nigeria had confidence to tell the world that what she needed was not food. The Nigerian Red Cross was feeding about 700,000 people daily in the eastern states. It had also stockpiled 13,000 tons of food and was assembling another 7,000 tons by the end of January 1970. As Nigeria's Commissioner for Information, Chief Anthony Enaro, clearly pointed out in January 1970, Nigeria's immediate needs were for assistance aimed at solving acute transportation problems and reopening public utilities and restoration of social services, not food. Britain's offer of 20 vehicles was very helpful at this stage of relief operations. In his broadcast at the end of the war, Gowon had called for volunteers, doctors, nurses, engineers, technicians, builders, plumbers, mechanics, administrators, and skilled hands. In a short time, 15 doctors and 50 nurses were rushed to the Igbo heartland to embark on mercy operations alongside 900 Nigerian Red Cross officials and 114 Red Cross officials in addition. And 114 foreign Red Cross officials. So they had 900 Nigerian Red Cross officials and 114 foreign Red Cross officials. In addition, the federal government made available 2 million naira, that is 1 million Nigerian pounds then, for relief activities. This thing is Opo. By the end of 1971, I'm jumping pages because of time. By the end of 1971, quite an appreciable amount of work had been done with regard to rehabilitation, reconstruction, and resettlement. About 120 million naira worth of cash and materials had been expended on rehabilitation work in Nigeria within the period 1970 to 1971. The value of assistance from abroad was estimated at 64.6 million naira. Federal government rehabilitation and special currency grants totaled 33.14 million naira. The University of Nsukka received 12 million naira for its reconstruction. There is no federal presence. Your mouth. Belasa. University of Nigeria Nsukka received 12 million naira for its reconstruction, while 6 million naira was spent on rehabilitation of industries. The African Continental Bank was granted 5 million naira for its reopening. Thus, with massive federal aid, external assistance, and efforts of the people of the war-affected areas in self-help, it acknowledged what the Igbos also did for themselves, Nigeria recovered faster than could have been expected. Later, in 1970, Gowon's attention turned to the political and administrative program of the military. Still basking in glory and popularity, a young, happy, and assiduous Gowon approached Nigeria's 10th independence anniversary, October 1, 1970, with hopes and high aspirations. In a lot of ways, he captured and encapsulated the hopes and aspirations of Nigeria in his broadcast to the nation on this memorable occasion of Nigeria born again and grilled, of a Nigeria born again and grilled through the crucible of its own blood. It was a Nigeria transformed from a mere geographic expression to an organic living entity, nurtured and given meaning to by the supreme sacrifice of Nigerians. That's not all Nigeria did, by the way. We cannot, in 2025, bear Ojuko's burden and apologize for what we're not responsible for. Not what neither we nor our parents were responsible for. Know the true history. And while I respect Pastor Matthew, I think he's one of the fathers of faith. He's someone to emulate in terms of, faith, investment in real estate, he has done fantastically well. His real estate sector is building Macarius, the luxury place. Doing some very, even at this age in his 70s, he's coming up with new vision and new dream. So it's somebody that I really, really respect. However, when it comes to this Nigerian history, you cannot start Nigeria's history with pogrom. And even that program, you have to understand what it really means. We should have empathy for all Nigerians, particularly the Igbos, because of what they suffered. We should have compassion as human beings, as Christians, especially for those of us who are Christians. You should have compassion, but to not be manipulated because of compassion. And the only reason you'll be manipulated is because you are ignorant. And I hope none of us is ignorant. Love people, have compassion, but don't let anybody gaslight you with some sob stories as I see what you did to me. I didn't do anything to you. I feel sorry for what you went through. My parents helped. That's a flex. My parents actually supported you. I'm not using that to demean or put you down. I'm just acknowledging what my parents did. I can also help wherever I think you need help. But don't blackmail me. I don't owe you anything. Apart from love and respect. I don't owe you. No, you don't owe me anything either. But I believe that whatever I'm supposed to do, I will do as a good citizen and a good person. But don't blackmail anybody in this country. That's about it. Thank you very much for listening to that very long response to that video. May God bless Nigeria. May God bless Igbo people, Yoruba people, TV people, Idoma, Hausa, Fulani, Ibibio, Efik, Anang, Oron, Pachama, Langtang, Angas, rather. Everybody. God bless everybody. In Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you very much for listening. And if I came across harsh earlier, I had to. If you feel bad, that's very good. Go and study and let's take responsibility. There's something to apologize for. People should stop disturbing the rest of the country with. And lastly, if you say you want to leave Nigeria, please pack your bags and go. You don't have any right to be blackmailing us with I want to leave. When you left, Nigeria did better. If you leave, Nigeria will do better. If you stay, we'll find a way to make it work. But if you want to go, get on the next bus. May God bless you. May God keep you. You have a safe trip. In Jesus' name. Amen. I see some people in the comment section. Let me bring them up. And then we'll have some responses before we close the session for today.